Hi everyone, my name is Jennie Hansen. I am a former professional and current age group triathlete. I'm a triathlon coach with QT2 Systems and I'm a licensed physical therapist. And I'm going to talk today a little bit about an affliction that plagues a lot of us athletes, which is cramps on the bike. I'll talk a little bit about some of the mechanisms behind them and how we can sort of deduce what's going on in order to treat and prevent them moving forward. So when it comes to exercise-associated muscle cramping, there's sort of two main theories that have come about through the years. The first one is that cramps are related to dehydration or electrolyte imbalances. That's kind of the older one that's been longer standing that I think most people are aware of and most people are used to attribute to cramping. The newer one is a more fatigue-related theory where fatigued muscles cause our muscular system to go a bit haywire, leading to these prolonged muscle contractions. The muscles kind of contract and can't relax, and we end up getting cramps in our working muscles. So there's evidence for and against both of these theories. In reality, it's probably kind of a spectrum of causes, where it's maybe not one or the other, but maybe a little bit more one or the other. So it's important to kind of look at context of if we do cramp on the bike, what was going on at the time and what can we do to fix it and prevent it in the future. So a couple examples from my own racing days. In Ironman Cozumel in 2023, the swim was canceled. I spent probably, an hour or two before the swim start after I turned in my morning clothes bag where I didn't have access to any fluids. I didn't have any electrolytes. And then about 80 to 85 miles into the ride, I flatted. It ended up being an ordeal where the tire flatted twice, it was sliced, I ended up having to wait for tech support. And in this time, I neglected drinking and neglected taking electrolytes. The first time the tire flatted, I actually was probably like a quarter mile away from an aid station and out of fluids anyways. So, it's this extra 40 to 45 minutes of sweating in the hot sun. When the race is passing me by, I'm not necessarily doing what's in my best interests moving forward. Eventually, they were able to patch the tire. I got going again, and probably about 5 to 10 miles later, I started getting some cramping in my left quad. So yes, there was some fatigue there. Obviously, I'm 90 to 95 miles into this ride, but I wasn't doing anything I hadn't done in training. I wasn't pushing out higher power. And I did have this incident where I was, were these causes where I would have lost more fluid than normal, where I would have lost more electrolytes than planned. So in that circumstance, yes, probably there was some electrolyte imbalance involved. And I did, concentrate. I just took in a lot of fluids, took in a lot of salt. I was able to get the cramp to subside and finish the race, even though it wasn't necessarily pretty after all of that. But so in that circumstance, I was kind of thinking logically on the spot about what might be going on. On the other hand, another area of me that's cramped, that's probably been more of a fatigue related mechanism in several Ironmans now, has been my hands. And so this is something that occurs when I've gone from a tough open water swim and then onto the bike, particularly in kind of more hilly courses like Ironman Lake Placid, where I tend to be sitting up more, maybe I'm braking some on descents, I'm sitting up to climb. So basically my hands are on the hoods and the brake hoods a little bit more than normal. This has also happened in races where I've traveled, which in this case, I've been doing a lot of pulling luggage around, just kind of pre-fatiguing my hands and arms with stimuluses that they don't normally face. So in these circumstances, it hasn't necessarily been in particularly hot or humid environments. It's been in situations where I've been doing the same thing nutritionally that I've done in every training ride. It's just the difference in stimulus is going directly from this open water swim directly onto the bike. Typically, like a lot of people, I'll swim in the pool in the morning and then come home and, get on the trainer later in the day. So it's not quite the same sort of stress on my body that an open water swim in a race would be. So in those circumstances, there's been times where I actually have thought, just race brain, you think you're cramping, take more salt. I've done that and ended up making myself, just giving myself some GI distress, giving myself some nausea. Had, kind of derailed my race in Ironman Lake Placid last year by just sort of downing a bunch of salt late in the bike when my hands were cramping. And now kind of looking back at that, I'm able to say, okay, well, it was unlikely that there was anything going on major electrolyte wise. It was likely more of a fatigue mechanism. And in those circumstances, the best thing for me to do is just get into the bars, relax the hands, stretch out a little bit, and then outside of racing, try to add in a little bit more things like holding dumbbells for strengthening exercises, or, if possible, practicing that open water swim to outdoor bike transition. So again, cramps can happen for multiple reasons. They can definitely be uncomfortable. They can derail our bike rides, but if we think logically and kind of understand sort of the mechanisms and the theories behind why cramps happen, we can help to prevent them moving forward.